First, let's talk about Rachel Reeves. Is she up to the job of Chancellor? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Tell us what you think. She made history as the first woman to be appointed to the job, but now the Daily Express is reporting that she's in the firing line and could be replaced as Chancellor by the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. The Prime Minister hasn't commented on the claims that he's considering a reshuffle, which emerged in your paper, Christian. And they've caught the eye because it's one of those stories where people think, oh, that sounds like it might be true.
Yeah, I know that the talk originally emerged at the start of the year when the gilt market was going into meltdown and the cost of borrowing was soaring. But yeah, it's a very interesting story and says so much that, you know, the problem is that even if Keir Starmer is not in a million years planning on replacing Rachel Reeves, the fact that we're talking about it as something that doesn't sound mad this soon into the new government, I think speaks volume about how it's going.
Yeah, well, look, we should take a look at the sort of trajectory of Rachel Reeves since she got the job last July. And yes, R for Rachel, R for Reeves. There she is, RR. And she shares her initials, of course, with the famous car, right? Because that is the emblem of the Rolls-Royce. And it's just a reminder that back in the day, she was... There we are, let's put the emblem on the bonnet. But she was properly there. She was landed, wasn't she? She was at the steering wheel right at the start of this gun. RR11 we've got as the number plate. It was only July the 4th last year she took to the wheel of a very powerful machine, HM Treasury, the Treasury Rolls-Royce. The government was unassailable. That was the Tory position. That is now the Labour position. Look at all those red MPs. She could expect a minimum of 5 years in the job. You've got to think Gordon Brown, Geoffrey Howe, Nigel Lawson. But now, what sort of vehicle is she in now? Rachel Reeves, she's in the bumper cars, isn't she? That's what's happened. So we can see her here. She's having a hell of a time of it here. Let's just focus in on Reeves getting bashed around. Let's look at some of the bumps here that Reeves has undergone in her bumper car, certainly not a Rolls-Royce. Bump, 2-child benefit cap. Labour was saying, well, we're probably going to remove that cap the Tories brought in. She said, no, I'm not going to remove it. And that went down very badly with her backbenchers. Bump, the winter fuel allowance. This is the famous one. If you take £300 from nearly every pensioner in Britain, you're going to have a problem. She should have realised that. That was another crash for Reeves in the bumper car. Bump, she goes again. The farmer's inheritance. Again, never make people with guns angry. That's another rule of politics. Their inheritance tax has gone up and they are furious and they're marching. And bump again, the employer tax has gone up because they couldn't raise income tax and VAT, they promised not to. So they had to put a tax on employers. So just one thing after another, Helen.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to remember the cards that she was given. When she came into post, that was a pretty big mess and a pretty big hole. So, you know, you could say, what else could she do? Yes, she has made a couple of mistakes. You know, the energy was clearly not a good move. That should have been, you should have waited for that and that kind of thing. But they were given a really difficult hand. They said...
You'd go with, when they say 14 years of Tory misrule...
Absolutely.
And then they say a £22 billion black hole, you think those are decent reasons to be a slow start?
I do, because when you think the Bank of England chief, Andrew Bailey, he has said that he thinks it will take time for the structure. He's saying that these things will work, but you've got to give it time. You know, 6 months is not long enough to try and repair all the cuts that we've had in just about everything, you know, education, social care, mental health.
But I don't know
you can't do that without funding it. So she's got to do something.
Yeah, but so they want to spend more on health. We say this every day. We should just have a little sting that says it. We don't have any money as a country. We've got £2 trillion of debt. Their solution to that is to grow the economy. OK, we get that. They've got this plan to grow it, and now it's shrinking. I mean, the growth is basically nothing.
Yeah.
So what's gone wrong? If it's not her, what is it?
Well, I think the fact is it is her, right? We can talk about the mess the Tories left, and I'm not going to argue against that, but I don't think it's as bad as she claims it to be. We actually were in the last year, the Tories, the fastest growing G7 country. We've now fallen down that scale because she talked us essentially onto the brink of a recession. She was so dour and gloomy when she came to power. This 22 billion black hole claim actually is a nonsense because so much of that were Labour decisions on public sector pay, which were absurd. They gave the unions everything they wanted.
9 billion was pay rises for train drivers and doctors.
Without any commitments to reforming those services. And now we're on the brink of a recession because also the national insurance rise, the employers' tax, you say, was disastrous. We're now looking at a rise in unemployment. That was another thing the Bank of England said yesterday, as well as halving our growth figures.
If you're on the right, okay, so you want the books to balance.
Yeah.
And she's trying, and maybe in our lifetimes we will never see, there will never be a year where we spend less than we're taking in tax. Brown couldn't even do it at the top of the biggest boom in history. So, as Helen says, she's been dealt an impossible hand.
Well, it's a really difficult hand. And at the moment, I don't think any of the parties really have a grip on this issue because what we need to do really as a country is have a big conversation about what we can't have the state doing. The problem is that the state does too much and it does it all badly.
Well, I suppose the classic, what is the health service? 200 billion a year? Trust, you see, this is where trust comes in, right? Because I know what you thought of trust. Trust says we're going to slash taxes, and then she realises they got no money. So she starts talking about what can we cut. And apparently one of the conversations is, could we stop all cancer treatment in the NHS? Truss actually went there. Now, what should Reeves do that doesn't sound insane?
I think it's really, really hard, isn't it? But I think she's got to get the message across, which Starmer did say when he came into power, I will not be popular at the beginning. I will have some very difficult, hard decisions to make. Well, he kept to that promise. But I think we will see some improvements. So I think it's about the messaging. I don't think the messaging was great. The messaging around the budget, that wasn't helped by the media and the way that was portrayed. So the markets didn't like that. That didn't help. That could have, that's, I think we've all got.
You're sympathetic.
I'm very sympathetic because I just think, a lot of us were saying we will happily pay a penny more in our tax if it means my child gets mental health treatment within less than 2 years. It's the comment.
I think you could pay 40p more in your tax. You wouldn't get any of that. Something seems to go wrong in the delivery. But
if you've been cut, as the mental health budget has been for 14 years, but the need has risen, that has huge knock-on effects for the economy.
All right, well, you raise a good point. There is a lot of need, and it's very difficult to talk about slashing and burning when there's so much obvious need. Trevor's in Hertfordshire. Hi, Trevor.
Hello. Hello.
How are you, Trev?
Fine.
Hey, so what's up?
I believe she needs time. You cannot blame this government. They've been there 6 months. Blame the Tories for the mess this country's in.
Why, Trevor, out of interest, though, why did she raise the tax on employers? I don't get that. Because employers...
What else are they supposed to do? Whatever she'd done, she'd been criticised. It doesn't matter what she'd have done, she'd be criticised.
So you think it's just that people have got it in for her?
Yeah, of course they have. Newspapers are vile. Look at that bloke sitting on your panel. They're vile newspapers in this country.
Well, you can't. Look, the camera's gone to poor old Christian now. You're saying, look at him, he's vile.
Look at the knife crime in schools in this country. My missus is a teacher, 30 years in the same school. They're leaving left, right and centre. They can't get teachers. Blame the Tories for this mess.
You think it's the Tories?
Yeah, of course it is. I'm ashamed to be British when the Tories are there.
And I take it you won't be voting Reform. You'll be a Labour guy, will you?
No, I certainly wouldn't vote. And I certainly wouldn't vote Tory. My mother was 103. She died 2 weeks ago. She's always voted Labour. Always.
Thanks, Trevor.
103.
Thoughts with you.
She told me as I was a kid, never vote Tories. And I've never done it yet, and I'm 75.
So she told you that, when 70 years ago?
When I was about 14-year-old, and I've followed politics since I was 14.
Wow, I love the this is what it's all about, this country. Trevor, brilliant passion. And you really care, don't you?
Tories.
Yeah, I know you don't like Tories, yeah. I think you'd said that, but thank you. After the break, we're taking more of your calls on whether... Brian in Newport. Hello, Brian.
Hello. Yeah.
Is this unfair?
She's not up to it because what she should have done really was the money she's borrowed for net zero should have been put in to sort the country out. They should have said, right, we'll wait till 2030 before we start looking at net zero. We've had this money. We're going to use it. We're going to sort all the problems out. At least they're showing willing, not going off onto things that could be put off for another few years. Well,
listen, I mean, I don't understand. When you say net zero, I don't understand what the green...
22 billion for carbon capture, 8 billion for GB energy, which is not going to be anything for 20 years.
But I think they ditched that.
That money could be spent on us sorting the country out.
Yeah, well, but the other big one, what I'm confused about, Brian, is this. Ed Miliband is the green guy. Ed Miliband has been hidden in a laundry basket or something, I don't know where. We haven't heard from him. He has now surfaced yesterday, actually, because I interviewed him, talking about nuclear power. He is so against a third runway, and I don't understand why he hasn't said, if you build this thing, I'm leaving. Brian, what do you think? Do we need the third runway?
No.
Right. Thank you. Shelley in Newcastle, hello. Hi, Shelley. Hey, Shelley.
I've got a few things to say, just to lead up to it. But
that always worries me, but carry on. Just to lead up to something. Okay, fine.
Everybody's forgetting we had COVID, which Labour were quite happy when the government was spending billions to save people's jobs. We've had the cost of living, which they keep thinking it's our country where it's been the rest of the world as well. We've had the war in Ukraine, so this has cost billions. Plus the Tories give people to help them towards the fuel bills, which this lot aren't doing. But Rachel Reeves has never been up to the job in the beginning, I don't think. And I think
but wait a minute, is this just people criticising her because she's a woman and having a go and calling her things like Rachel from accounts being unfair?
No, it's because she lied. Can I just say, they keep giving money away. They keep saying we haven't got money. They give 30 million to Tunisia so they could train up migrants. 22 billion for this carbon capture, which hasn't been proven.
Tunisia.
The Chago Islands, they're going to give it away and pay to give it away.
Yeah, the Chagos is going to be. I predict that the Chagos is going to become quite famous this year. I think it's going to be a problem for them.
Shelley's fantastic. This is they're fantastically well informed.
She's very well. She's
spot on, and yet she's right. Of course, that one of the things we don't mention, we talk about the inheritance left by the Tories, is yes, they made a lot of mistakes and they didn't really have the right vision, but also so many of the problems. The inflation crisis was caused by all the spending that we were doing during COVID, which everyone liked, and Labour were constantly saying we should spend more. They were calling for more lockdowns. So actually, if Labour had been in power during the last government, if they'd won the 2019 election, it would have been the Tories picking up an even worse inheritance.
COVID killed every government. Look at Jacinda Ardern, look at all of them. Yeah. COVID killed every government, Trump, everyone else. The issue for the Tories surely is they brought on Brexit and the guy who was supposed to deliver it, Boris Johnson, just got distracted or couldn't be bothered or whatever. So we ended up in this sort of, we're kind of in Brexit, but we're not, and we don't know what we're doing. And that's just an ongoing issue. So that's the problem, I would say. But you're right. COVID in Ukraine, they couldn't do anything about.
No, and Boris clearly wasn't up to the job.
He seems to lose interest in it. Debbie in London, hi.
Oh, hello.
You think it's too early to sack Rachel Reeves?
I think it probably is. I do like her, but I think the trouble is she's shot herself in the foot, really, by saying that they won't... When they made that promise not to tax working people, and they had to make these unpopular taxes, like for the pensioners, the farmers, and with the businesses, which
the
I
employers,
think are really, the mistake. But I think this has all happened because they made that promise, and if they hadn't made that promise, they could have spread them out a bit maybe and not had to make these really unpopular decisions.
I think you're exactly right. I think it's all very well, you win an election, but your promises can stop you doing anything after it. And you either get accused of breaking your promises or hiding your intentions, which is almost as bad, or you have to do something horrible. And I think this employer's tax has really backfired.
It has. It'll be interesting to see if there's any change there and what happens there. But I just want to pick up on the point that so many media outlets are calling her Rachel from accounts. Now, you laughed.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that's funny?
Because she lied on her CV.
Well,
it's not sexist.
Where's the evidence that she lied?
Because she claimed she was an economist and she was an accountant working at the Bank of England and for RBS. It's not. I've heard this before. It's not sexist. We used to have the Theresa May's Chancellor, Philip Hammond. He was called Spreadsheet Phil because he was notoriously, detailed-oriented and checked
I think
every
it's fair to say he's the dullest politician we've ever had.
I don't think.
Well, we don't say Trump from the dump, do we? Or Boris from the Muppets. You know, it's.
No, I've heard worse things about Boris.
But I think we should be saying it.
When I did the graphic, I steered away from Rachel from accounts because I think maybe that is a joke that tends to be made by men about women.
Exactly.
And it's partly a joke about her voice and how she sounds. However, isn't Christian right that she did mislead people with her CV? Her CV didn't initially give the full story of, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter or maybe it does.
Well, maybe you look at Boris saying he was good at details.
But you can't say Rachel's doing fine because Boris did badly. That argument doesn't work. But okay, Rachel from accounts does offend some people. There's no question. And particularly people see it as misogynistic.
Absolutely. You don't hear women calling her that, really. You
No.
hear men calling her that. That's a big difference.
Paul is in... we spoke to Debbie, did we or not? Yeah, we did. Thank you. Did we or not? Yes, we have. Sorry. Thank you, Debbie. So sorry. Paul in Manchester, hi.
Hi there. How are you doing?
We're doing fine. We're trying to work out... Well, you tell me whether you think the phrase Rachel from accounts is sexist.
Well, it's probably borderline.
Borderline.
It's probably borderline.
Okay. Right.
My problem with all this is, at the end of the day, the government, before they said they was going to get in, they turned around and they said there's a big hole in the economy. Well, number one, somebody's not done the job on the Labour Party. They should have known this before they got into the government.
Everyone knows it. There's a hole everywhere.
But also, when they got in government, the first thing they did was give a massive pay rise to the railway workers.
Yeah.
They give a massive pay rise to the railway workers, which one of the richest workers going. They totally missed out the nurses and the doctors, which they should have given them money to.
They gave the doctors one as well. Yeah. OK, Paul, thanks. Sylvia in Durham, hi.
Yeah, hi, Jeremy. I don't like it. I just don't like the girl at all. I think she has put the biggest dagger in the backs of us real Labour voters. And that man was right. They gave the biggest pay rise to the railway workers. They took away the pension from the people who needed it. They have attacked the most vulnerable, which are disabled, long-term sick, people on the dole, and there's many people on the dole who lost their jobs in COVID and now can't get a job because of their age group.
Yep.
They prefer to take younger people on because they're less expensive.
So you see yourself as real Labour. Do you think Starmer is real Labour as well, or classic Labour as they call it?
No, I don't. I actually think that this Labour government have more Conservative in them than the Conservatives.
OK, Sylvia, thank you. Paul in Norfolk, hi.
Yeah, hello. I'd just like to say that she isn't up for the job because she just can't cope. None of Labour, even the so-called Prime Minister at this point in time, is everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie.
Well, I don't know whether can't cope is another thing that gets thrown at women. I don't know, Helen.
That's exactly it. You don't hear that kind of language to certain other politicians, and I think there is an element of it's because she's a woman, and you've got to remember that it isn't just her. It's Keir Starmer has agreed this with her. You know, it's not just her.
We've got to move on. Thank you very much. Thanks for your calls.